Hello everybody, my name is James Pavel Shakras, and I wanted to dive straight into today's video with a thank you to one of my subscribers who has been following me for 9 months, by the way, which is awesome. This person is, he calls himself BSD Guy, and he sent me a really interesting link that I originally was going to just simply hit reply to and type in something and do that, but I instead decided to create a whole video about it because I couldn't really address it in a comment. So he writes on my video about the PXS 3000, where I brought out the gram weights to show the difference between the black and the white keys. He says, I think you have set the standard going forward for measuring digital keyboard action. Check out this link from Sweetwater. No one was doing this until your video on the Casio. So just a brief overview of that video for those of you who haven't seen it. I brought out a tool used by professional piano technicians to show a weights difference between the black and white keys of the PXS 3000 by Casio. The gram weights by themselves are not a definitive test. I just brought these out just to show a difference that I wanted to prove. I wanted to prove my point, and that was the only way I could think of proving it. However, Sweetwater, they think that this is a definitive test. Now, they do, in a sense, admit down here that it's not definitive at the same time. They say, since all players are different, no two people would characterize the keyboard action the same way, which is true. That kind of, in itself, devaluates the definitive title of this article. But I wanted to talk about this article here and talk about some of the things that Sweetwater got wrong, because although, in a sense, they put a lot of effort into this, look at how many pianos they tested for this, there's a lot of misleading information, and any piano technicians who follow my channel and are looking at this will probably already see things wrong here. So let's go back up to the top here and talk about something they mentioned in the article. This is the escapement mechanism. In a real acoustic piano, and they get this right, they say the escapement is the mechanism in a piano that allows the hammer to fall away from the string after the key is pressed. If you have a real piano, go try this out. Slowly, gently press the key down until you feel a little bump. That little bump is the escapement mechanism. As I mentioned, professional piano technicians use gram weights to be able to identify the weight of a piano action when they are regulating it. However, Sweetwater, while they did use these, they did it wrong. They kind of turned it into their own strange test that got some really weird answers. So what they did here is they put the gram weights on the key, and I'll talk more about this in a little bit here. But what they say here, we placed these gram weights on middle C while holding the key in the neutral position, as pictured in the first photo below. So they put their finger on the key to hold it in place and then set weights on top. Then they said we released the key and allowed it to drop to the depressed position and listened for middle C to sound. We used headphones since these notes are at incredibly low volumes. Any piano technicians watching, feel free to chime down in the comments, but I don't think this is how that test goes. I've talked to a lot of piano technicians, probably over 100, and I've never heard them use that part of the test. So here's how it's supposed to work, okay? So this is a video from Chupp's Piano Service. It's not an endorsement. I don't know them at all, but they are a well-known restoration service. And here's a I wanted to show you a few seconds of this video because it shows a guy using the gram weights, all right? So it starts here around 5 seconds into the video. If I hit play here, you'll see him put the gram weight on the key. He'll tap the action to make the key move, and then the key will go down. And I'm going to pause it right there. That did not make the note sound. That key is resting on that escapement, that bump I talked about. Let me play it one more time back for you, starting here at 5 seconds, right? Sets the weight down, doesn't want to move, he bumps the action a little bit to get it to move, and that right there is the bare minimum amount of weight it takes to make that key move. Let's check out a different video. This one's got some audio here. This is from a guy called Kurt Weissman on YouTube, Grand Purpose Piano. Again, never even heard of this guy, but he seems to know what he's doing. Let's take a listen to this here.
So I put the weight on the key, just enough to allow the key to move all the way down.
Now, while he did say to make the key go all the way down, you didn't hear any notes. You didn't hear that key actually make any noise because it's not making noise. That, again, is resting on the escapement. And that is the goal of the gram weight test. It's meant to test the amount of weight it takes for the key to reach the escapement, not to actually sound. However, Sweetwater decided to actually make the note sound. And another thing I wanted to talk about here is why are they using double weights? Again, this is something I've never seen any piano technicians do. You'll see that the weights here have the little threaded post that goes in the middle, and you can see here on this one weight, what's it replays here a second. There you go, look at that weight on the right there has a bunch of weights stacked on it. Why don't they just keep stacking more weights onto it? That's how it's supposed to work. If you look at either of these. Let's look at Chups again, right? He's got a second weight over here, but that's just sitting there. That's just there. This weight is the only weight that he's using on this one key. Let's look at Kurt Weissman. That's the only weight he's using on the one key. So with Sweetwater here, if we play the video back, they've got a second weight farther back into the key, which has a slightly bit less leverage and therefore will take more weight to depress. Even though a real acoustic piano feels just about the same throughout the whole key, most digital pianos do not. Even the highest end ones usually will suffer from that. So that is also giving them some false readings. Now it says here, we performed the test on 37 digital keyboards and included a Yamaha S6X acoustic grand as a reference. So here is their chart, and you can actually click to download it. I think I'll view it in another tab, so it's a little bit bigger here. All right, so what we have here, these are Sweetwater's numbers for all of these pianos. You've got the DJX 660. No, I'm not going to read all of these. I'm just going to read the ones that I have played myself. The DJX 660, the MP11 SE, the S3000. Which keys do they test? The black keys, the white keys? That actually makes a difference on that one. The Nord Stage 3, I have played that. Let's see what else here. The P45, the ES110, the SV2 from Korg, the Yamaha CP88. Let's see here, the Yamaha S6X, I love that piano, it's a beautiful piano. Yamaha P515, the P125, what else down here? That's about everything on this list that I've played. So what we have here is some interesting numbers. All right, so let's look here at the Kawai ES110. I'm highlighting it, hope you can see that. Their weight is 85 grams. I did a video on my channel where I took a few different digital pianos, including the ES110 in its same price bracket, and used the gram weight test on it just for fun to see what they weighed out to. I found the ES110, and I forget my exact number now. I should pull up the video here and check it out. But I think the ES110, I came out to around 45 to 50 grams. I'll put the number up on screen. I'll check it out and put it up on screen here. The action on this digital piano is basically around the same as the P125. If I put our 54 gram weights on here, you will see that it does go down. I've found that 55, if I add the 1 gram weight on there, 55 tends to be a little bit more consistent over the general area of the key, but as you can see, 54 might also basically be good for the Kawai ES110. I also found in that same video that the ES110 and the P125 were about the same weight. However, for some strange reason, the ES110 and the P125 has a much higher weight of around 97 grams, so over 10 grams higher, according to Sweetwater, than the ES110. Now, there is a small little caveat I do want to mention here, and that is that most, at least a lot of these digital pianos, do not actually have a simulated escapement. The MP11 SE does, a few others do. I don't think the Nord Grand does. The Vivo S7, I'm sure, does. A few others do. Of course, the real Yamaha will. But a lot of these, like the P125 and the ES110, don't have a simulated escapement. So in my video, I kind of estimated where the escapement would be and made the weight move down to that position. So that does make the test a little bit more difficult to do. Also, the FP30 is in here with a weight of, according to Sweetwater, 81 grams. Mine was pretty high. I think for the FP30 I tested, I came up with around 60 to 70 grams. It was on the, I think it was around 60 because it was towards the end of the amount of weights I had. That there are a few shortcomings of the FP30 that I've mentioned in the review of it. I won't dive too much into that because that's not what this video is about, but the FP30 does have a very realistic action. As a result, it has the heaviest action of any of the digital pianos here in this category, in this room here with me. It has an action weight of 63 grams, which is a lot. It's very heavy, but that's around kind of like what you'd find in a typical grand piano. If I put all 63 grams here, you'll see that it actually will go down to the let-off. This actually has a let-off, by the way. So it was heavier, but for them, it's on the low end of the spectrum, but still it has a much higher weight than mine. All right, so that alone, between the fact that they're actually making the keys sound when putting the weights on the key, which is not how the test is supposed to work, and the fact that they've got 2 sets of weights, which again, I've never seen any technicians do, that alone is going to be giving them some false readings. But here's a couple of really odd things I wanted to point out, and they even mentioned this in their article. The Hammond SK1, okay, this, I have never played it. I do know basically what it is, though. It's from Hammond Suzuki. It's like a tone wheel, clone wheel organ, and it does not use a weighted action. It uses like a synth-style, organ-style action that just has springs. It's the heaviest action on the list by a long shot. It overshoots the Yamaha S6X, a real acoustic grand piano, by well over 10 grams, well over, more like 20. An organ is heavier than a piano, according to Sweetwater. Now, anyone who's ever played any organ or any synth, which feels somewhat similar, will know, and those of you who also played a real piano will know that almost all real pianos are far heavier than almost any organ or any synth that I know of. And that's very strange. Again, they're putting the gram weights on the key to make it sound. Now, in my opinion, you don't even... Gram weights are for pianos, and you can force them to work with digital pianos. They're not for organs. They're not for the Hammond SK1 or any organ sound. What does it say? There's no let-off. There was no let-off in an organ. There is no let-off in the Hammond SK1. While I did say there's no let-off on the ES110, on a real piano there is, so using a gram weight on that can tell you a little bit. But there's no point to use it on an organ, so why that's even here I have no clue, and how it managed to be 125 grams of weight is beyond me. I want to go put some weights on my B3 now and see what that comes out to be, because I'm kind of curious. But that is just about everything I think I wanted to say about Sweetwater's digital piano action comparison. The numbers to me appear to be way off, the test is very strange, and once again, unlike their title here, let me zoom back up to the top, this test is not actually definitive. There's a lot more that goes into how a digital piano's action feels than just the weights. For example, let's say you go into a piano store or a digital piano store and you want to try out the piano. Is the first thing you're going to do to pull out your gram weights and put them on the piano, or is it going to be to sit down and play it and see how it feels for you? Now, if you don't like the way the piano action feels, and you're like, hey, I want this regulated, what's the technician going to do? He's going to pull out the gram weights to see exactly what he can do to adjust the piano and to put this at the precise weight that you want it to be at. Just testing the gram weights by themselves is not a definitive test. And like Sweetwater says, everyone has different opinions, so there is no one best digital piano anyways. So that's just a look at their test here that I wanted to talk about. Again, the sound, triggered versus sustained. I've never heard of a piano technician ever using that as a test with gram weights. Obviously, sustain is an important issue with pianos, but you're not trying to get maximum sustain while using gram weights. That's just not a thing that I know of, and I've never heard of that. So that is Sweetwater's test here. If you stumbled across this and were using it as a guide to choose which digital piano was right for you, I would honestly throw all that information that you thought you learned out the window. The P515 here, Yamaha P515, they say it weighs 96 grams, and the P125 is heavier than the P515? I want to get the gram weights out and test that out now too, because I did not come to that conclusion at all. I never used gram weights on the P515, but now I want to, because I never, ever would have thought, and I do not think, that the P515 is lighter than the P125. The P515 has a very, very heavy but responsive and beautiful action, one of the best actions on the market, but it is on the heavier side of things. I would not say it's lighter than the P125, even by 1 gram. I'd say it's heavier by about 10 to 15. That's my estimate without even testing it out. So maybe I'll do a video on that. If there's enough interest, maybe I'll do that. So that's been the little, not review here, but the little overview and discussion about Sweetwater's quote-unquote definitive digital piano keyboard touch experiment. Once again, thank you very much to BSD Guy here for showing me this link and giving me some video content. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you very much for subscribing for 9 months, BSD Guy, and thank you to all the rest of you who have also subscribed. It's really cool. Actually, now that I'm scrolling down here, no one on this list at the moment has actually subscribed, but I can actually see who is subscribed and who is not. So thank you to all of you who are subscribed. And if you're not subscribed to the channel already, and you might want to think about that, I do lots of cool videos and reviews of pianos and digital pianos and all kinds of cool stuff, and maybe you'll be seeing more gram weight content from me in the future. I don't know. I'm kind of curious to see how some of these actually stand up to my tests. So anyways, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.